And we are live here from the wonderful Ball State Sports Link studio here in Muncie, Indiana for another episode of the HB Toss. I'm your host, AJ Swiatek, alongside Hudson French. And Hudson, I'm excited. I think we're in for a good one.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Certainly. I appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to a good show. We'll get right into the first segment here. That is Week 7, the week prior, in 60 seconds. And the week started off with the highest scoring Thursday night football game of the season. The Cardinals, they knocked off the Saints 42-34, 2 pick sixes in that one. Arizona, they looked really good. Then the Giants, they went into Jacksonville and they pulled off another comeback victory as Daniel Jones was able to lead his 5th game-winning drive of the season. Then we moved to the afternoon games. The Jets, they went into Denver and they won a defensive battle. Sauce Gardner, big game for him. He was able to pick up his first career Defensive Player of the Week award. Then Geno Smith, he continues to cook in Seattle. The Seahawks, they beat the Chargers in LA by double digits. That 4-3 squad, a team that really people were not expecting to be this good. They have absolutely been cooking up there in Seattle. And finally, on Monday night, Bill Belichick's two-headed monster of Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, it was simply outclassed by Justin Fields. Fields had a good day both on the ground and through the air, and ultimately the Bears were able to pick up a dominating 33-14 win. And this Bears team all of a sudden felt like all hope was lost. No, they're back on track. And for the Patriots, I mean, they're not used to having a losing record through 7 weeks, Hudson.
No, it was one of the more surprising games of last week, and there was a ton. And my Bengals came through against the Falcons. Joe Burrow, 500 yards accounted for, 3 passing touchdowns. I had a good week last week.
Certainly, I'm sure you did. I mean, Joe Burrow, after all that scrutiny early in the year, I mean, he's looked much better. Week 7, as you mentioned, it feels like we're starting to get to the point in the season where you can really start to feel out how good some of these teams really are.
Absolutely. The difference, I think, for the Bengals so far has just been reading those defenses. Joe Burrow coming against those outside linebackers and those slot corners, that too high safety look. They found a way to tear up the Falcons, and I think they're going to do something really special this week.
Zach Taylor starting to find his identity. It feels like as the season goes on, especially in such a weird NFL season, more and more teams are finding identities that maybe they didn't even realize were theirs. And speaking of identities, I mean, this Ball State defense on a collegiate level, I mean, they have been absolutely phenomenal this season. They've been holding MAC opponents to the lowest points against in the entire MAC, and a major leader on that defense, inside linebacker Clayton Coll.
Clayton, what caused you to start playing football?
I grew up playing football, mostly my family. My dad's a football coach, my brothers play football, so I just followed in suit with them.
And is there anybody in the NFL that you model your game after?
Not one particular. I grew up watching Notre Dame a lot. I watched a lot of Jalen Smith stuff, Manti Te'o before that, so I could probably say Jalen Smith.
All right, thanks so much. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Emma, and definitely also a big thank you to Clayton Coll. I mean, always interesting to hear from a guy on a defense where everything feels like it's clicking right now. We got to hear from Nick Jones last week, Clayton Coll this week. I mean, the Ball State defense, they are really firing on all cylinders. As we'll get into the next segment here, Hudson, we're going to go to one that we've done absolutely every week, the one that has stayed consistent. 4 picks, 4 key games of the week. This time it'll be for Week 8. We'll start with the game in London. The Broncos, they'll take on the Jaguars. They'll go to Wembley Stadium. Who do you like in this one, Hudson?
Well, I like this matchup a lot. These are 2 teams that I feel like they're on different trajectories, but right now they're kind of in a similar place. I really like this Broncos defense for what it is. The pass rush is incredible. Bradley Chubb and all those Ohio State guys, Draymond Jones, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper. They're finding ways to get home, and they did against the Jets, but the issue is their run defense. They got torn up, and I don't think that gets any better against Travis Etienne now that he has the entire backfield, right? Now, no more James Robinson. It's just him. And that chemistry that he has with Trevor Lawrence over all these years, I just don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to find a way to spell that and get, out of their own way. Offensively, Russell Wilson and the head coach and the offensive coordinator, it doesn't seem like they're on the same page. I don't think that it changes this week. Let's go with the Jaguars.
Yeah, we'll get to James Robinson here in just a minute. I know we're both excited to talk about that trade, especially as a Jets fan. But, give me the Broncos in this one. I'm going to stick with Denver. Russell Wilson, I mean, everyone's been waiting for him to cook all season long. Yeah, it's Week 8. I think people are starting to become non-believers in Russ. I'm still a huge Russell Wilson guy. I think he gets back on track here. This Jaguars defense, they really don't do much to scare me. I mean, they don't have much on that side of the ball that I think will give Russ any sort of issues. And if he could just play the football we've been used to seeing him play earlier on in his career, I think that this is a game that I think, especially going into the year, would favor Denver. But even as of late, where the Jaguars have faltered, they lost in that last-second win for the Giants last week. They've had a tough time as of late, and I mean, with no James Robinson there, you mentioned Travis Etienne, but I just don't know if he's that three-down workhorse. Didn't love that trade for the Jaguars. I'm going to roll with the Broncos. Give me Russell Wilson. Give me Nathaniel Hackett to get back on track. And then we'll go to the next game, Hudson. The New England Patriots, they'll head into New York. They have a 12-game winning streak against the Jets. You think they're going to be able to keep it up, or will the Jets finally knock off that terrible, terrible streak?
The Jets are going to knock off that streak. Of course, I love streaks. I love everything about stats and stat keeping. The Jets are a better football team at this point in time. I think that defense, Quinnen Williams, and then you go to the pair of Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. These guys have 8 picks on the year, this whole Jets defense, and the Patriots are looking for that standout guy, and they haven't found it yet. They got handled pretty convincingly against the Bears. I just don't think that stops, especially with the rushing attack that the Jets can throw up with James Robinson. I think they got James Robinson as soon as Breece Hall went out, and I think he's going to be their workhorse, and I don't think the Patriots are going to get out of their own way.
Certainly. I feel like what GM Joe Douglas sent a message not only to the fans, NFL fans as a whole, but just to the locker room. Right when Breece Hall goes down, they go out and immediately make a trade. This isn't the same old Jets. They're going to bring new faces in. And this is a team that, sitting at 5-2, has realistic playoff hopes. You see James Robinson, he'll come in. It looks like he's supposed to play this Sunday. I like him and Michael Carter to get some yards on the ground. And I think what everyone's going to be looking at is Zach Wilson. The stats since coming back, they haven't jumped off the page by any means. I mean, he hasn't been this elite number 2 overall pick. And you look at last season, week 2, he played the Patriots. He had 4 interceptions to no touchdowns. So Bill Belichick has got the better of him earlier on in his career. However, since then, I mean, especially starting the second half of that rookie campaign for Zach, I mean, he has been so much better turning over the football. That's what it really is. I mean, he's been under constant duress. You mentioned what the Broncos were able to do to him last week, but he has had a hard time getting the ball in the end zone. He's done a much better job holding on to the football and not turning it over. And I think that that's the key to victory. I think that that is what will ultimately catapult this Jets team past the Patriots. They'll break that 12-game losing streak, and the Jets, they'll get on track at 6-2. I mean, you don't want to start counting your eggs before they hatch, but it feels like the playoffs, they could be imminent after that.
Give me the Jets.
Certainly. And then we'll move to the next game, Hudson. A battle of the NFC West. 2 teams that were really expected to front run the division, but 2 teams that have quite frankly been disappointing. We'll take on the San Francisco 49ers. They'll go to LA. They'll play the Rams.
I like the 49ers in this matchup. I just haven't seen a lot from the Rams. They looked better last week, I will say that. But offensively, they're struggling. Matt Stafford's got 8 picks on the year, and it doesn't get easier against this 49ers defense. They've got playmakers, right? Nick Bosa, all these guys that can create pressure. I think the biggest telltale sign this year for the Rams, 22 sacks on the year. And you look back to the Week 4 matchup against the 49ers, they got home 7 times against Matt Stafford. So what's going to change now? You know, that's the question you have to ask. And then offensively for the 49ers, you add Christian McCaffrey alongside Deebo Samuel. You have to be able to get it done on the ground if you're going to win this game for the 49ers. You have to be able to get it done on the ground. But I just don't feel like the Rams are strong enough to face this many playmakers on either side of the ball for the 49ers.
Certainly. I mean, I know you mentioned Deebo Samuel. If he'll play on Sunday, that's up in the air. But really, regardless, I'm going to stick with San Francisco here too, Hudson. Christian McCaffrey in that Kyle Shanahan system, he'll get his first full workload as a 49er this week. And I think that that's just quite frankly dangerous. The 49ers, that front office, they showed the entire country they're going to trade nearly an entire draft class for a running back, a position that's had such little value in recent memory. I mean, that shows they really think they're one piece away from being a contender in the NFC. And why not believe what guys who are getting paid millions of dollars are believing? I mean, to me, that's just the way I look at it. Christian McCaffrey is going to come in. Kyle Shanahan, the running back whisperer, I think that he's going to get it done. And I think that this Rams team, there's going to start being some serious question marks. You mentioned already giving up 22 sacks on the season. I mean, that's a stat that just makes your jaw drop.
Well, now their O-line is banged up. I'll give them that. But, you know, where's your answer? Who's the plug and play? It keeps getting worse every week, and there's been no answer so far. So give me the 49ers.
Oh, certainly. And it feels like ever since Robert Woods left, Matthew Stafford's been holding on to the ball for longer. So not all the blame goes on the offensive line there, but that Rams offense that was just so elite just one season ago. I mean, if they don't get back on track here against the 49ers, they'll fall to 3-4 on the season where the 49ers currently sit. And as a Super Bowl defending champion, I mean, that's just not something you want to hear. Last game, we're going to go to the Packers. They'll head in to Buffalo. They'll take on the Bills, and get this. This is Aaron Rodgers' first time being an underdog by more than 10 points in his entire career.
And deservedly so. This Packers team is not up to the standard of which we've seen, in the past. I really think the Bills have this. I don't think it takes much more than the eye test. I think this is really simple. The offensive firepower that Buffalo has, Stephon and Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox, these guys, they're going to run the gamut against the Packers. Jair Alexander, I think, is a great cornerback to be facing off with Stephon Diggs. Who else are you going to turn to? Because you look at the other cornerbacks in the Packers room, they're giving up a 95 QBR. They're giving up more touchdowns than picks. It just doesn't look good. So I think Josh Allen, if he can create the matchups to get speed on those outside linebackers, talented linebackers, by the way, if they can find a way to get speed against those linebackers and against those corners deep, I don't think this will take very long. I think the Bills are going to walk out of there with a win.
I also like the Bills, Hudson, and I think that's something that I find interesting. You focus so much on the offense. I'm going to focus on the other side of the ball, this Packers offense. I mean, they've looked like a shell of themselves this season. Aaron Rodgers, he's had a really hard time back there. It feels like ever since he went down on that Hail Mary attempt against the Giants, he just has not looked like the same player. This is a guy who's coming off of back-to-back MVPs, and all of a sudden people are saying he's a bottom half of the league quarterback. I mean, I'm not going to jump the gun that fast. No. But nevertheless, this Packers team, they have not looked good this season. There's a reason Aaron Rodgers is, for the first time ever, at a multiple points, and by multiple points, I mean double digits, underdog here in Buffalo at home. That Bills crowd, they're going to be loud. They're going to be there. Give me Buffalo as well. Hudson, we're going to move to the next segment of the show. This time we're going to talk about hot takes. Really well-resounded last week. We're going to move to it again. Hudson, what's a take that it might be a little bit scorching, but something you believe in this week?
Man, my first one, I kind of hit on it earlier. I really like Joe Burrow and this Bengals team. He became the first quarterback to account for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in multiple games, and I say he does it again this Monday night against the Browns. I get that the Browns have a defense. I get that the Bengals' O-line is so-so. I understand that Jamar Chase is out, but I also know that Denzel Ward is still in concussion protocol, and I think that the Bengals, against these two high looks, earlier in their season, they weren't ready for it. Let's just call it what it is. But they've grown, and he's clearly reading those outside linebackers, those slot corners against, their wide receivers that run the gamut, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. They're not going to have Jamar this week. But I still think he's going to be able to create enough opportunities and mismatches, especially with Hayden Hurst. I think he's going to be able to create enough dissonance against that defense to really get the Bengals offense going. Right,
and I feel like it really goes to show what the Bengals have built there in Cincinnati. With Jamar Chase out, you still get to mention T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and Hayden Hurst. I mean, the weapons are there. It's definitely bold, but if Joe Burrow's able to play the way he has these last couple of weeks, I don't think it's too far out there. I can see that happening as well, or at least something close to it. Hot take I'm going to go with, I know you're not going to like it. We talked about it earlier. Not only do I like the Broncos to beat the Jaguars, I talked about how Russell Wilson's going to cook. Give me them to win by 21 plus this week, Hudson.
Why?
Russell Wilson, he's got to get back on track at some point, because it's been reported now that if the Broncos lose this game, they're going into sell mode. And I think Russell Wilson's aware. I mean, he has a phone. He doesn't want to go without Jerry Jeudy. He doesn't want to go without Bradley Chubb. This is a team that if they don't win this week, the playoffs are out of the question. They know how important this game is, and they're going to go out and win it.
Man, my second hot take is going to be James Robinson, the New York Jet now. He's going to rush for 3 touchdowns against this Patriots defense, and I don't think this is that crazy of a take. I think the Patriots' run defense is subpar, and we saw that against the Bears where they had 3 different rushers go for 60+, and that cannot happen when you're Bill Belichick and the Patriots, right? You pride yourself on what? Defense. So give me James Robinson, man. 3 touchdowns, I think, especially within the red zone. If you get maybe on the 2-yard line or so, I think he could pad the stats. 3 touchdowns. I don't think it's that crazy.
Hudson, I could hardly hide my emotions over here. I absolutely love it. I think if James Robinson could come into MetLife, he could pick up the big win for the Jets. I mean, you got to assume if he could get those 3 touchdowns, that will be enough to fend off the Patriots. I will absolutely be a supporter of that one. GM Joe Douglas, he does it again. He gives up a conditional 6th-round pick for the star Redbird from Illinois State, James Robinson. I mean, he has looked absolutely phenomenal in his time in the league. I could see it happening. I mean, he's trending on playing on Sunday. He'll have to split some touches with Michael Carter, but I like it. I do. And this last one, you mentioned the AFC South. We talked about James Robinson, who came from Jacksonville. I'm going to go to a different AFC South team. Give me the Colts over the Commanders, but in a commanding fashion. I did that. I'm sorry, Commanders fans. Sam Ehlinger, he's going to go for 250-plus yards, 2+ touchdowns. The Colts, they're going to walk away with a double-digit victory over the Taylor Heineke-led Commanders.
Where are you getting this information from, man? Taylor Heineke, give me anybody. I mean, give me Carson if he was starting. Give me Taylor Heineke if he was starting. The Commanders are going to beat the Colts. There's one thing that I do know. You know, I'm not from Indiana, but there's one thing I know. The Colts always drop the bag, okay? I don't like the Colts. They're not great. They've never been great.
Never been great. We saw their Peyton Manning Super Bowl run there.
Listen, the Colts are not going to get it done against the Commanders. They should get it done. But when they should get it done, they usually drop the bag. I'm gonna nix that one. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man. The Commanders, they've got no tape on Sam Ehlinger. It doesn't do it for you?
No, not at all.
All right, fair enough. Well, then we'll move to fantasy football starts and sits. Final segment of this show. Hudson, I'm going to start you off. Who is someone that you're looking to start in absolutely every one of your leagues this week?
I really like Gabe Davis against this Packers defense, and we kind of talked about it before, but I really like Jair Alexander in that matchup against Stephon Diggs. But then you look at elsewhere, Rasul Douglas, Eric Stokes. What is the defense going to do against the Bills' firepower, the myriad of weapons that they have? If they're able to create the matchups, get the speed where they want it, which they've been able to do against anybody, I think Gabe Davis is going to have a great game. I mean, you look at those two cornerbacks I mentioned, they're giving up a 95-plus QBR, 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and that's just not going to get it done against Josh Allen. So if they're able to create the matchups that we know they can create, Gabe Davis should have a great game.
Yeah, this Bills offense, they've got so many mouths to feed, but they all find a way into the end zone. Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, that offense feels like they're firing on all cylinders. And as you mentioned, I mean, with a favorable cornerback matchup, if you're in a position to sit Gabe Davis, I mean, you're probably doing pretty well anyways, but certainly stick him in the starting lineup. A guy that I'm looking to start, though, Hudson, maybe a little bit more off the radar, only owned in 22% of ESPN leagues, 14% on Yahoo. Give me Greg Dulcich, the rookie tight end for the Broncos. Called up just 2 weeks ago from the practice squad. He had 9 targets last week against the Jets. He was a huge red zone target back at UCLA. Loved him as a prospect, and I love him now. He's built a connection with both Russell Wilson and, as we saw last week, Brett Ripien. He's looked really good. He's been a guy they go to in the red zone. He's already found his way into the end zone. He's looked really good at the NFL level. It feels like his traits are some that translate really well, and in a year where it's so hard to find a good starting tight end, a guy that could get into the end zone is so valuable. Give me Greggy D.
I really like him, and just like you said, I'm kind of copying you here, but I'm not surprised at all that it translates really well. He looked great with DTR and all those guys at UCLA, and I'm really happy for him.
Certainly. I mean, the Broncos, they continue to move away from Albert O. It was interesting going into the year because you saw the Broncos, they invested so heavily in Dulcich in the draft with where they picked him. It was like, you already have a tight end there, but clearly they had a vision in mind. Hackett as a guy he wants to use. Dulcich comes in, and if he's still able to be picked up in some of your less sharp leagues, definitely a guy you want to grab off the waivers. But Hudson, there's 2 sides to every story. We both gave a start. Who's a player that in all of your leagues, you're not only looking to sit, but you're so confident in it, you're advising other people against it as well?
I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit because I went in on the Patriots' run defense, which is justified. But I think you have to sit Michael Carter this week. With the trade of James Robinson, it really says something because as soon as Breece Hall went down, they went and got James Robinson. They acted very quick. So I think he's going to be the bell cow. He should be the workhorse. And I just don't think Michael Carter is going to be in the game plan as much. Obviously, he's a great RB2. He's going to factor into the game plan, but not as much as one would like for a start.
And Hudson, you mentioned it. He's a great RB2, and I think that is what GM Joe Douglas, this entire regime, that's what they showed. They believe in him as an RB2, but not a 3-down back. The day after Breece Hall is confirmed with the torn ACL, they go out, they make a move for James Robinson. As you mentioned, I expect him to be that workload back too. Just depends. You're clearly expecting him to get a lot of carries here this week. I think it depends on how long it takes him to take over that role. But Michael Carter, certainly not a long-term answer in terms of fantasy value. I like what he's been doing for the Jets. I liked him at North Carolina, but in terms of fantasy, it's really rare you find a running back too with value. I mean, outside of Kareem Hunt, who even then feels a little scary to start some weeks, I mean, It's Halloween season. Maybe Michael Carter sneaks his way into some lineups, but not this week. And another guy who I'm not looking to start, will stick in that same matchup, Jakobi Meyers. He looked so good these past few weeks with Bailey Zappi, and it felt like they were growing a real connection there. But you look at his stats with Mac Jones under center, I mean, they've been absolutely abysmal. These guys are unable to connect. He's only made it into the end zone once with Mac Jones back there at quarterback. And in fantasy, I mean, that's money. That's the green zone. If your guy's getting into the end zone, that's how you're scoring points. And Jakobi Meyers, he could go out there and have as many 4-catch, 80-yard games as he wants, but he was even having a hard time finding those with Mac Jones. So I think Mac Jones, he's a hindrance to this offense in terms of fantasy value, a team that started to run the ball so much. I don't expect them to drop back and pass too much against DJ Reed, against Sauce Gardner, Jordan Whitehead, LaMarcus Joyner. I mean, that secondary that's been, arguably top 3 this season. I think it's going to be really, really hard for them to get anything done through the air. They'll turn to Ramondre, and that just leaves even less targets for Jakobi Meyers. He's a guy I'm not looking to start.
I don't even think it's much of a quarterback issue when it comes to Jakobi Meyers. I really think this week it comes down to just what you said, the coverage that they're going to face. These guys are all locked down. It's rare that you get that in a secondary where all the guys you can trust on just about anybody. I do not like the Patriots offense, and I do not like it this week against the Jets.
Right, it feels like the weapons really not the best, and you factor that, as you mentioned, I mean, it's rare you see a defense that plays together like this and at this high of a level. I really don't see him getting open in man-to-man against any of the corners, and I don't see him really doing much with Mac Jones back there. Definitely a guy I'd look to stay away from, and I think that'll do it for the show, Hudson. I really appreciate you coming on, sitting by my side. This has been really fun.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the HB Toss. I'm your host, AJ Swiatek, alongside Hudson French. A big shout out to everyone in the studio. Wouldn't be possible without everyone behind the scenes. Emma Potter, Jordan, Tyler Klimes, Ryan Stojetz, Tristan Fleur, Charles Smart. I'm AJ Swiatek, HB Toss, signing off.